Hey, it's Don the Auction Professor. This is part 2 of my BOLOs on costume jewelry. I've had a lot of talk about it. There's just no way to do one specific video that's going to cover costume jewelry. I could probably do one video a day, every day for a month, and still not even cover everything that you would need to know everything about costume jewelry to effectively buy it correctly. There's a lot to know, a lot to learn. It takes a little while. It's going to take you some time and practice knowing which ones are worth money. You're going to learn it by selling them. You're going to learn it by buying the wrong ones. You're going to learn it by not realizing which marking is which. So that's just things that I did and mistakes that I made on my journey to sell jewelry. But, you know, costume jewelry across the board sells very well. The profit margins are very good. You know, you're still 70-80% profit if you get the right item. So, I mean, it's a good turn for your investment. But again, this is the second part here. I'm going to do another video tomorrow covering the same basic topic, but more in depth on more items in more detail. But we're going to go to the screen and we're going to talk really close about some costume jewelry here. Okay, so this is the second part of my costume jewelry. Now, I know everybody isn't going to know the names, isn't going to know the exact styles and eras for the most part. So one thing I can always recommend, or at least for us, I can tell you what works for us. For me, I always look for animals, people, places, and things. Very easy. It's like a noun. You want to look for people, places, things, animals, fruits, fish do well, birds do well. Insects are always the bomb. I always buy insects. Pretty much every insect pin I have ever seen, I have bought. I just love the insect ones. They always do well. So it's not necessarily the brand you always have to look for, but try to always buy pieces that have a name on it, even if you don't recognize the name or can't find the name on eBay. If you get something like this with an animal on it, you know, a bird, something such as this, like an eagle. Now, this is a Jafari, crown Jafari. I've shown some from the series. This is, I might even have a couple more in here from the same series. The Phoenix bird, I believe, is in the same series. I don't have every single book, but I have this one specifically is in a book. So there are quite a few, but again, it doesn't have to be Jafari. What I look for are the animals. And if you can't sell them as a pin, as a vintage piece of jewelry, what I then do is sell them in the collectibles, the animals section. Dogs, birds, cats, all of those pins sell in the animal section as well. So again, you don't always have to list everything in the section you would think it would be the best in. So I do sell quite a bit of jewelry in the animal section of collectibles. Like if it's a fish and it's a specific fish, I put it there. If it's a cat or a specific kind of cat, it's going in the cat section there. And you're going to get some people who buy it. Now, like pug dogs. Like I sell trade cards and postcards. Anything paper with a pug on it always seems to sell very quickly. The same thing goes with some items in jewelry category. If you had a pug jewelry pin, you know, a pin or a brooch or something, it's going to sell real quick. But like this one here, $995. But again, I'm only going to show you animals, birds, places, and at the end I've got something a little different here too. These are all BOLOs in my book. I don't know if this is technically the name Ivan the Russian Dance. This is an early one. This is a known piece. This is a cape, like a fur cape pin. And you can see the crown Jafari. There's a crown above the T. You can see the double bars, and as I've talked about before, there's like a hook at the bottom to help catch it so this doesn't get lost. But this one's $630. So again, people, places, things, animals, scenes, any of that stuff. I always look for animals. Owls are always usually a pretty good thing. Now this is carved Bakelite. I'm not going to touch on Bakelite too much. I can tell you though, if you rub it a lot and get it warm, it's going to smell like formaldehyde. There's a pin test. I don't like to do any of that stuff. I can pretty much tell most of it. I've had tons of it. Not tons, but quite a bit of it, and we sell some quite often. But these pins, especially the ones with the googly eyes, always seem to sell fairly well. And these are early, like 40s or 50s probably. This is a fairly nice one. The pin back, I would gather, would be, put this in the 40s. Maybe the very, very early 40s, but $625 on this one. Again, bugs. Bugs are what I always look for. Now, this is a coral craft. Is it marked? Let's see. Is there a zoom in? Yeah. Now, that's literally what I look for, coral craft. Now, sometimes you're only going to see the word coral. It's still the same piece. It's still coral craft. I can't quite make it out, but I'm sure it's a sterling piece. Now, some of these are listed in books, too, so you can find a lot of these. And tomorrow's the last one, and I may do some more in the future, too, because there's just so much to cover on jewelry. As I said, I could do a whole month just on jewelry and still not cover everything, you know, still leave you blind on so many areas. Jewelry takes time. This is one of the areas that took us some time to get the right ones, because as I've said, you can find coral craft pieces even that don't sell for very much. You can find Trifari pieces that don't sell for very much. Even Chanel pins and stuff like that you can find that don't sell for so much. Or Yves Saint Laurent, you know, some of those don't sell for very much either. So it just depends on the ones. Even Gucci, a lot of these pieces will sell higher than a Gucci pin or something. So just keep that in mind. But we're just centering in on those topics again today. Bugs, animals, people, places, things, and fruits and things like that. Again, that's an area that you can get, because like this can go in the insect section in collectibles. You're going to sell it some way, shape, or form. So if you buy animals or people or occupational looking people or things like that, there's many different categories you can list them in. We might touch on tribal tomorrow as well too, but there's many other areas you can list in. So if you buy things like jewelry wise that have several different categories that they could sell in, you're upping your chances on selling them greatly. You could double the chance of selling them if you specifically find certain types. Like this bug will sell either way. Whether it was coral craft or not, I can almost guarantee you this would sell. If not to a jewelry person, to a bug collector. So anyway, that's why we're looking at these today. And now this person has the Trifari book. This probably is a patent. It probably has Trifari patents in it. Now, I've got a copy of one of the Trifari books. I don't remember if this is the specific one I have. But I do have several Trifari books that cover these, because you've got to know they're not all marked. This one's a nice gaudy piece. I don't think this one was marked. Maybe it is. Yeah, actually it is. So, and this is another Kate pin. You can tell by the size, too, on the Kate pin. But these bugs, I am telling you, the bugs are what I always look for, too. Bugs, animals in general. But bugs, I love bugs. I love insects. My wife loves the giant beetles. So, you know, this is just a perfect example. $6.95. Another bug. Again, bugs. Bugs are really good. Iraji Moini, I believe it's pronounced, but I could be pronouncing that wrong. Again, most of these pieces are marked. Now, this maker, we've got a pendant by this. It doesn't look anything like this, so you just got to have a good idea on what's good production, I guess you could say, how well it's made. The construction of a piece really sets it off, and I can usually tell by the construction if it's worth my time. The better it's constructed, the better it is in my book. Not always the case, but $574 on this one. Again, bugs. Now here's an eagle. Now this is Bakelite again. Now this is hand carved. The circles in the background were done with a machine, from what I understand, and then the rest was probably carved in there. But $560. Most of these Bakelite stuff like this, if it's carved Bakelite, goes. Animals especially. Animals of any kind. I sell dogs all the time. Poodle dogs are one of the more popular ones. There's some designs, obviously, that'll show up over and over and over and over again. These items I'm showing you aren't like one of a kinds. There was thousands of most of these made. I've seen this one before. Josephine Baker, it's like a takeoff. It's not an official piece, but these sell. These are very collected. Jazz collectors alone would buy this. So you've got many different options to sell this specific piece. Vermeil is like a gold-plated silver. It's just a term used. Cabochon are the rounded rounded off jewels at the top. Pools of light, sometimes you see them called too, or jelly bellies if they're in the stomach or covering a body of an animal. And we're going to show you some of that too. The earrings on this one here actually move independently too, so that's very neat. It's a nice pin, $550. There's several versions of this too. There's dance versions of her as well. And as I said, this one has a double appeal because jazz collectors will buy it too. And there is a Josephine Baker section. You can list this in entertainment and by performers. So keep that in mind. I try to get stuff that have more than one niche appeal. You want several. And a lot of people don't get the difference with jewelry and stuff. So this is a good way to set it apart for you. Bugs again, Trifari. Now this is a whole set. I have not seen the whole set. I've seen individual ones. This one is in a book, and here's a perfect example. These are all pretty much identical other than the size. So you've got two different pins. One would be, has a thicker one. One would be for like your cape, your outfit, and then your earrings. So again, these clip-ons are actually, looks like they're missing. There should be like a rubber piece that goes on with the ear. And most people replace those, so that might be the gist on this one here. But these are sterling as well too, so this is good. Most of the sterling Trifari sells at least decently, $50 or so for most sterling Trifari pieces, unless it's just something plain. But insects in general. Now here's another Trifari. Now anything that looks like this, any of these graphical, figural pieces like this will sell. And now this is chess pieces, so this will sell in the games and chessboard set as well, or that section, even in toys. So these figural ones, again, have multiple appeals to them. So, you know, this is what I look for. This is it. And we're going to show you some other ones that are similar to this. So even if this wasn't Trifari, and let's say you saw this for $2 or $3 somewhere, $1 a piece out of this, $3 for the set, you're still going to get $20 or $30 would be my honest opinion, minimum, even as a nondescript, unsigned piece, just because of the collectability on something like this. And once you've had them enough, you'll also be able to tell how old something is by the color of the stones, how they're set, and things like that. So, now this is another fur brooch. I don't remember if this piece is marked. I have seen a similar one, not quite the same. Yeah, it's definitely a vintage piece. It's unsigned. It's hard to say if it's an official Disney piece or not, but this was $600. Another coral craft. Now, I always have looked for coral craft since the very first time I found a coral piece. And again, coral or coral craft, you'll see both. Rhinestone pieces with animals are always better. That might even be a stone. Yeah, it might be stone. No, it's probably just, it's plated. But it's pretty nice enamel plate and all, but that's a pretty decent piece. $480. Now, a lot of people haven't heard of coral craft. Coral craft is fairly common. You're going to see it quite often. It's just one of the names I always look for. There's a Christmas tree one. We're going to touch on some price guides tomorrow. I'm going to touch on a few of the makers and go over a few different styles, like cape pins and things like that, and things to look for as well, too. So tomorrow will be the last one on this. Obviously, live show is on Thursday as well. Now, this could be considered a Jelly Belly to some extent because he does have a clear, like, quartz-style center. And then he's got a cabochon stone on his head, too. But there's a whole series of these fortune teller genies, too. So we'll show you some more. Now, this is a HARR, and it's well marked, so you can't miss it here. Oh, and another thing. These serpentine roundish chains, or even if they're not round, with this look to them, with the like snake-like serpentine, those are usually good. They're usually vintage style. So anyway, just FYI. Now this one here, this is a symbol. So this one, again, a double collector. Cabochons on the bottom, does some nice rhinestones. Some of the coloring is flaking off. That will happen. But this one is something that a music collector will buy. A musician will buy this too, as well as a Trifari collector or jewelry in general. So again, people, places, things. This is an object. This is a thing. Flower-wise sells too, but the flower-wise you want very specific. I always try to buy the ones with the multicolored stones, big, 2.5 to 3 inches usually or better, and then you want the leaf part, instead of being gold, to be tinted, colored. That's usually what I look for. That's usually a dead giveaway. That's a better piece. They've spent more time to produce this one. It's more realistic, three-dimensional. It bends. The leaves aren't just flat. The bow wraps around the stalk, the branches. So that's part of what you look for. Three-dimensional. We've touched on that a little bit yesterday too. So Duet. Let me see if you can see a marking on this one. I don't remember if this one had a marking on it. Yeah, there it is right down there in the bottom. So, again, they're all marked differently. Each company did their own thing. These screws on the back were specific to a lot of the of this brand. So, usually if you see a screw like this, they're all hand-done pieces for the most part. The screw pieces are usually pretty early. This is early. This is like 30s probably. Very, very, very well constructed. That's why I went for $393. Now, we've talked about Eisenberg yesterday. Let me see if I can show you the marking on this. Yeah, this one's an early one too. Now again, this one's the little dotted marking. This is an early one. It's kind of worn down, which you will see sometimes. But this one's a nice one. This one's a sterling ram. Any of these, this could be Art Deco. Now I would have put Art Deco in here too, in that as well. Mid-mod century as well would have fit with this too. It's kind of a cross-border design style. So anyway, 380. Again, animals. That's what we're looking at. Trafar, now this is a Jelly Belly. Yeah, they put it in there too. Blue Heron, this is a nice bird. I mean, it's a really neat looking pin. So, it just depends. And this is a bigger pin. I've seen this one in person before. It's probably like 3 inches tall, if I remember right. Either way, it's a pretty nice one. The sterling silver, well marked, nicely done. Looks great on a outfit too, from what I see. Here's another Trafar. Now, this isn't an oddball one. This is a newer one. From what I understand, book-wise. I've looked up some of these in the past. There's several different of these cats. Let me see if you can see the mark right there. Well, it's kind of hard to see the mark, but the numbers on there you'll see too. There's like model mark numbers, something like that. This is just another Trafari pin too, so anyway. But it's gaudy. That's what you're looking for. And it's a cat, so this one would sell in several categories. A cat person's going to buy this. They might not spend $600, so if it's not a Trafari, you're still going to sell it. I would always list them in jewelry first. Don't list anything in 2 categories unless you have no other choice, because you're doubling your fees. So just keep that in mind. I never do that. What I do is I'll list it in one section. It doesn't sell, I'll switch it over to another section and let it run a couple months there as well too. So, no rush on something. You've got to have the right seller for anything when you're doing antiques and collectibles. It's not like a brand new item where you have a better chance on selling it quickly, but your profit margins won't be as high and you'll be paying more for the item to start with. So jewelry-wise, you're going to pay some more depending on where you go. All the jewelry I get is not cheap. I do spend, a couple $100 sometimes on some pieces, depending on what it is. So, everything is not cheap, but some of this stuff is. You can buy it in auctions. You can buy it in bulk. You can buy it at sales, church sales, flea markets, estate sales, garage sales. I mean, costume jewelry shows up everywhere, and I do mean everywhere. Even Savers, all the time. We used to buy it at Savers constantly. We used to buy, jars of jewelry from Savers, all kinds of stuff from Savers, before they closed down, obviously. Now this is another genie, clownish. This is another typical one. This is HAR. Now, again, this is a line. There's a line of these. And I think I've got another one. This photo here he's got is a little bad, but 398. Carved person. This is a Bakelite. Again, you're just going to have to know. There's a book. It's on the cover, so, it's right there. Bakelite pins. If it's in the book, anything you've got, if it's in a book, put book on it, usually, or put a picture from the book, or you can usually get a copy off of Google, too, for these. That will sell it, believe it or not. People want the ones that are in the book, too. Just FYI. But people, places, things, animals, that's, again, what I look for. If I have a choice and I only can afford so many, I'm going to buy the people, places, and things. Unless it's like a neon 30s deco pin or something, or it's just got some really incredible stones on it. Bakelite especially sells. Now here's another HAR. This is, again, third one from this one. There's a whole bunch of these. There's 20 or 30 different designs in this one. All marked fairly well. And there's other companies that knock these off too, so you will see fortune tellers. That is a standard from the 30s and 40s, even up into the 50s, that you will find. Well done, well executed, very interesting pin. More coral. Now, this is a typical late 30s, early 40s. Let me see if I can show you the back on these, if they've got a back. Yeah, and don't pay attention to the clip. Look at the way the backs are done. They're usually solid on these. These are heavy pieces for what they are, substantial. They're rather interesting. Coralcraft made a ton of these. And again, this one, I don't see the actual mark, but it probably just says Coral. When they were short for space, you might just see Coral on them. As I said, again, same thing. Coral and Coralcraft are the same thing. I believe there's one more Coral mark as well, too. Now, here's a vintage one with the tag, which you don't see very often. See if I can get it to blow up on it. Nope, it's not going to do it. I try to do 600 DPI for all my images, just FYI. And then you can get a nice blow up. But there's the tag. Now, I talked about these yesterday. Jewels of India. Now, that's a whole line of these. There's a lot of cabochon, round stones. And this one's actually missing a stone, if you noticed, right there. And it's still sold for $336. Now, that'll take a little time to replace, just FYI. We've got Fire Mountain Gems catalog. Now, I might touch that tomorrow too, but Fire Mountain Gems, you can find a replacement for any stone you need. Fire Mountain Gems. Maybe I'll put a link in there or something, but they've got a catalog. There's a catalog you have to buy on some of them. It's a really nice thick catalog, but they've got every stone you can imagine. So if you need to replace one in a very specific, like a cabochon, you might have to buy a couple different sizes to make sure you get the right one. But anyway, prices aren't cheap, but on a piece like this, you're going to want to spend $30 or so on a stone just to replace it to get a matching quality piece stone. And then you add the $30 in there, you could up the price, $100 or better on that one. So anyway. Now this is Karl Lagerfeld. Karl Lagerfeld did a lot of, let me see if I can, it's not going to zoom in. I don't like the ones that don't zoom in. It's kind of, there we go. Now there's his signature. It's the K is on the left, and it interloops the bottom right foot of the K, interloops with the L. That's literally how I've seen all of his pieces. So anyway, just FYI. Rather interesting, rather nice. Now he does chairs, clocks, all kinds of stuff. He's a item, not necessarily specific, but I've seen many of his. And these are missed because a lot of people don't realize that mark there, it's on the front. They don't realize that's the mark. So I find these occasionally. I used to find a couple of these now and then at Savers on the racks on the cheaper pins, the ones they thought weren't worth much. So anyway, again, these are rare, so you're not going to find them all the time. But again, you will find they are missed. But again, people, places, things, animals. So a treasure chest. Again, wildlife, oceanic wildlife, fish are popular. I don't think I have many fish in here, just because I just was searching. I just grabbed some items. But fish, Trifari has fish. Almost every maker did fish. Goldfish do great. Koi do great. Chinese-inspired images of fish do great. Again, this is another Trifari pin. Marked just like all the rest. It may not have the crown. I hate when they don't have the blow-ups, but oh well. You can see this one's well constructed. Again, something to look for. Look for these rivets. Rivets, screws. They're early. This is solid. It doesn't look as cheap on the back. That's a sure giveaway. And again, as I said, the vine, the stalk of the coral is all done in a different color. It has pearls. It's three-dimensional. It wraps around the branches. See, it goes underneath. That's the kind of thing. You don't want the flat ones. Those are usually newer. This is 319. This is a really nice piece, personally, I think. Very attractive looking, artistic-wise as well. Now, this one here, these are like trumpet flowers, I would say, something along that line. Here's another. This is Coral Duet. Now it's two pieces. It's a trembler. That means two pieces locked together to make the one. You can separate them and have two different pins. They'll shake and tremble too. So anyway, 310. Now this is, we talked about lunch at the Ritz. These are very specific pieces. These are oddball pieces. They move to some extent. You can see the rivet. They're gaudy, they're attractive, they're well designed, they move. Most of these go for a ton of money, $305, and these are pretty new still. Not vintage, but they're still pretty neat. Again, this is Joseph of Hollywood. Now I've seen this mark many times. Here's a perfect example in the book. She's got it on her head, actually, in that one, but rather interesting. Let me see if you can see the mark on these. I wish they'd show the mark. I don't care about the other information. Oh, they're not going to show the mark. Looking at these price tags, this price tag's way overpriced, I would gather, in my personal opinion, but still sold at that. Again, people want them if they're in the book. The book prices vary so greatly. I don't really pay attention to most books on pricing these. I do pay attention to them for a general idea. This is going to take you some time, as I've said. So anyway, let's move on. Again, people, places, things. This is a moon with rays and stars. Star and moon goes well. Crescent moon goes well. Any moons with faces on them go very well too. But anyway. Now there's a whole line of birds with nests. It's a whole series of these by a ton of different company, usually late 30s, early 40s. This is a Marcel Boucher, MB. You'll see it sometimes, or just Boucher, however it's pronounced. Let's see if the marking you can see it. Yeah, you can see the MB, and that's literally what it stands for. And again, you'll see it different ways. You see Boucher MB. Again, it's thick on the back. That's what I look for. Well constructed. Almost looks like there's a repair. Yeah, it looks like a repair or two. Either that or it's totally unplated. I guess that could be possible too, but it really looks like a repair to me. Maybe not. But anyway, $595. Now this is a cool one. I didn't like the term coolie. I don't use that too much. That's like a laborer, a poor person kind of thing. I would call it derogatory in my book. I mean, people still use it. I'll leave that up to you. I mean, it's more like going back to a class system, in my opinion. But anyway, it's nice. They're like Buddhas, in my opinion. That's what I would have put. Happy face Buddha, jolly Buddha. You know, he's got a nice robe on and fancy. Now, you'll find clips like this in many different styles, many different types of people, usually Asian-inspired for the most part, all of these. From the Far East, that's usually what I see this series. Now, I've got some, there's a bunch of different kinds of these, so most of them are ethnic in nature, but they're very, very, very popular. I believe the hands actually move back and forth a little bit too. So anyway, very nice set, $297. That's a har again, H-A-R. Here's another Jelly Belly, and you can see the belly is all jelly. It's a big stone, basically. Now, this one's lucite. Some of them are actually glass. Some of them are quartz. It just depends on the quality. This is a cheaper version, I should say. Here's a better example of the spike at the bottom that you'll see. That gives it away as a cape pin. And again, there's a screw in here. Any of the ones, the jewelry with screws in them, are usually good and well worth buying. So anyway, that's what I look for. $290 on that one. Again, all of these items here have several places I would be imaginable to sell them in. Birds in the collectibles section, the animals collectibles section. Birds sell very well, especially these. These look like the Guatemalan bird emblem on their seals. So just FYI, that would be another option on these. You can look the kind of bird up too, but this is a coral craft. This is another Duet. Do they have? Yeah, they've got Duet in here too. So this is another example of the Duet. They slide in there and they lock into place. You can see the coral craft. What does that say right there? Oops, hang on. Let me go back over here. I guess sterling. Yeah, it's marked sterling twice. It's marked on the clip. That is partially done like that. You will see that because they're two different pieces. The clip moves and it's attached to this. So they marked them both. You won't always see them both marked. Sometimes you may just see the clip marked and someone could have swapped it out. So be careful and pay attention to your items when you're buying them. But again, $293 on this one. And these are the lower end. These are things that you could still find. This is a nice set here, too. Is this an MB? Yeah, this is another MB. Let me see. It's probably just marked with MB on this one here. Now, some of them are all spelled out, too. So, sterling, MB. I can't really make it out, but I'm sure that's probably... Yeah, there you go. There it is over there. But anyway, nice piece, nice sterling. The numbers are like a model number or a mold number or something like that. So anyway, nice piece. Even individually, these could sell close to $200 a piece, depending on the day of the week. This again, most of what I'm showing you are standard known examples that show up in books or that you can find, you know, they made thousands of them. You can find these. So these are lower end ones now. I guess I shouldn't say lower end because you're still in the hundreds, but these are lower for, you know, these brands. Because Trifari, I showed you yesterday, there was some into the thousands. And again, this is the same line as like the Phoenix and the Eagle I showed you. So just an FYI, cabochon eyes and, you know, green eyes seem to sell very well too. But most of the birds go very well, $289.99, so almost $300. Now let me see how this one's marked. Yeah, there you go. Most of these with a loop, you'll be able to see that marking on it. It just depends. Nettie Rosenstein. Now, you're going to find stuff like this, but these are much rarer than some of the other ones. I look at all the birds. You'll be able to tell the difference by the style in my book. After a while, you'll be able to tell which ones are better done, which ones aren't the cheaper molded versions. This one's fairly realistic. Most of the parrot birds that you see pins, the wings don't stick out as far as this one here. It's a big three-dimensional piece. The 3D ones, as I've said in the last video, as well as this one, are good. And again, he's even put 3D in there. I didn't realize that. But 3D is what I look for. They're more showy. They stick out past the outfit the person would be wearing when they had this on. Let me see here. This is an awesome piece here too. Deja Reja. Let me see if you can see the marking on it. Probably not. Yeah, there you go. Nope, that's just a stress. That's stress crack there from it being bent. That's how you can tell it's pot metal too. Regular metal won't do that. Pot metal is cheap. This is an old one, so unsigned. Yeah, I didn't see that. I wish I would have looked. But three-dimensional again. Everything is painted and colored. It's made to look realistic with just some stones. Even with that damage, it went for 510. Now this one's in a book, so that's how the person knew it was Deja Reja. But it's in a book, so you know this is. Let me see if they say the book. They don't have the book, but that is what it is. So anyway, it's a nice piece. You can look up that person too, so, or that maker, I should say. But let's move on here. Again, flowers are people, places, things. This is a little different than some. Let me see if I can show you how it's. Yeah, now this is the backs of a typical one that's well done. You can tell by how thick the back is. It's all filled in. It's not hollow for the most part. It's three-dimensional to some extent because it's a whole bunch that's rounded lilacs, and it really looks like a whole branch of lilacs. $195. Let's see. It said it had a mark on it. Let's see if I can see the mark again. I don't see a mark on there, but now sometimes the maker's mark's on that pin that you actually see there, the actual straight pin back. Sometimes, like Crements, MB sometimes is marked in the pin. So sometimes some of the makers mark them on the pin itself. So just keep that in mind. $195.25. Now this is an insane one here. I don't know the deal. 70s this is from, or 80s. Troll beads. Now I've seen these a few times. I haven't been lucky enough to ever find anything like this. People usually tend to look these up. Let me see if you can see the mark. Yeah, that's about what you're going to see. LAA. Now there's other stuff just besides these skeletons. But these skeletons, for some reason, always seem to sell into the thousands. And they're fairly new, so. But almost 4,000. And if you look, there's 3 or 4 comps that are right in the same range as this one here too. So just an FYI. But it's a people place thing. It's a skeleton. Halloween collectors will buy this too. Obviously for not that much. But if you spend a couple dollars on something that's well done and semi-vintage, you should do well, at least in the Halloween section, on something like this. Fish. Now I've talked about George Jensen. Let me see how this one's marked, because some of these are marked differently. It's still got the George Jensen. See the circle there? And I showed you that before. That HK is Henning Koppel. Now, that's a designer. Now, you're going to see pieces by Jensen with many other initials on them, and that's all it means. This one's Denmark, Holland, Dutch. There's 925, there's 830, there's I think it's 850, and then 950 as well. So there's a bunch of different marks you can see on here. From the same maker. And you may only see George Jensen marked on it. You may see George Jensen with 925. You may see J or GJ. There's a lot of different marks, but these go very well. And this is just a small pin. It's a fish pin again, $800. Now here's another one by George Jensen. Now this is straight by him. There's no secondary signature marking here. Well marked. Anyway, you won't usually see Denmark on most of the pieces. This is a known piece. There's thousands of these. Any given day, there might be 20 of these up on eBay. Everyone sells. This one went US $376, and that's about average. They're butterflies. It's a pair of butterflies. I've had this one before, so anyway. Now here's another one. Let me see how this one's marked, because this piece I'm not very familiar with. I know it's vintage, and I did see it in a book once before. It's Tom Thumb. Unfortunately, it's not well marked here. This one's one of those. There it is. Oh, well, you can't really zoom in on it. Most of these that are marked, they're worth something. Vautrin, this is an odd piece. I would have bought it on a chance, even if I wasn't sure what it was, or couldn't figure it out until I got home. You're just going to have to take chances on some of these. I would never spend more than $1 or something on something that I didn't know. I try to look up everything. And most of these I'm able to look up before I leave anywhere to even buy it. So, anyway. Now this one here is just for an example. There's a ton of these little tiny Chanel pins that people miss. And I see these in the quarter basket. Not this specific one, but there's dozens and dozens of these little Chanel pins. This is a legit piece. Let me show you that they're cheaply made. They look cheap. They're not distinguishable. Most people miss that little Chanel tag on the back, but that's a legit piece. There's fish. There's all kinds of little things that they do. $280. And again, this one people are going to miss if it's loose. I'm telling you right now, I look at every little card in Sabres, and I always have, and sometimes I find stuff like this. There's fish. There's all kinds of things with just a little CC on it. So anyway, just FYI on that one. Now, this one here is just an example of some realistic three-dimensional flowers. There's plastic versions of this, too. This is a metal version. And let's show you there's the Sandor. Now, Sandor is from like the late 30s, early 40s-ish, all the way into the 50s from my recollection. You can tell by the clasps, too. You can even tell by the chain, technically. Let me go back here. See how the chain links are connected there? That's typically an earlier style. Newer stuff is just not as fancy. But again, fully colored. All the metal is fully colored. Those are the ones you want. You want metal ones like this, of any kind of three-dimensional. Now, there's some new gaudy 60s pins that are really cheaply constructed. This is heavyweight. This is not flexible. This is very stiff, thick metal. That's the difference here. But $299, almost $300 for that one. And the last one here, this is what's called a panel bracelet. Now this one's just, again, for people, places, and things. Now you're going to find scenes on this one. This one's earlier than most. 1900, there was a movie that came out, A Trip to the Moon, and that is where I honestly believe this was made from that movie, inspired by that movie. Maybe this person hadn't thought about that, but you know, even the Martians are similar in style and construction. So this is, in my opinion, obviously from, or not necessarily an official tie-in, but one that was done while that movie was out, which is like 1899 or somewhere in there, 1901, something like that. And they're dating it from 1900 to 1920. I would guess this could be like 1898-ish through that era. I wouldn't think it's as new as 1920, but it could be. Either way, this is a very nice piece. Even if it wasn't sterling, since this is not, it's still just an awesome design. And you're going to run into ones that have oddball designs on them that are dirty and, you know, silver plate, not made out of metal, not marked like this. And almost all of them, if they've got neat scenes on them, usually it's a panel one, and there'll be like 5 or 6 panels, and each panel will have a different scene of something. Some are plays, like a Shakespeare play or something. Others are like partial zodiacs, or scenes like this, or plays. Just oddball mix of stuff. I've seen musical notes. I've seen musical clefs and stuff like that on these. Wording. Just many things. But the odder the image, the odder the panel artwork, the better they go. So $860 on this one here. I mean, that's in a huge amount on this one here. But anyway, that's what I have for you today. All of these could sell somewhere else. This could sell in the space section. Pretty much everything I showed you has multiple venues to sell, flower collectors, or whatever the case may be. Most of it will sell itself in the jewelry section, but again, if you're buying animals and you're not sure, you can't tell the difference between the high-end pieces and the lower-end pieces, you at least have a secondary option to sell, so you're not confined just to the jewelry section if you can't sell it that way. So anyway, that's what I have. Tomorrow's I'll touch on some price guides with some links to them and some other aspects of jewelry as well too. So anyway, that's what I have for you. Well, there you go. Hopefully that gave you some ideas and some thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified if we post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell a friend.